Howdy folks, in today's video I'm going to be giving you the follow-up to last video where I told you how to get the most optimal DPS, but in this video I'm going to be giving you the ultimate team guide. Now with this video there's going to be a lot of ifs and buts about certain things that you want to run. Now the thing is that you really have to have a really coordinated team for a lot of this stuff to be applicable to you. Now there are certain parts that you can pull out of this video as a solo player or someone who plays with primarily LFGs. I would try to point those sections out whenever I get to them. Now, I would like to take a couple seconds into today's video just to ask everyone who's watching this current video to subscribe to the channel, as it took a lot of time to put this video together. Not only this video, but a lot of my past videos too, especially the ultimate DPS guide which I uploaded last time. So if you could take a second to subscribe to this channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Now, if you want to improve your team play DPS and strategies, that means everybody has to be on board. The hardest part about this is getting everyone to understand if they're playing a supporting role, they're doing it in order to improve the overall DPS of everyone else. Now, this can be extremely hard to do in LFG groups, like convincing somebody to run Galahorn or convincing someone to run Lumina, especially if they don't know how to use those set items. There always will be that one or two stubborn people that will not want to use the same strategy as you, but if that's the case, don't try to force your strategies onto other people, just so you can reduce frustration around the board. Now let's talk about some weapons that you could be using for team play strategy. Now, let's get into the obvious ones of the ones that either empower your teammates or debuff the enemies. Starting out with the debuff category, we're going to be talking about the Divinity and Tractor Cannon. Now there are other options such as the Deterministic Chaos and the Collective Obligation, but I do not recommend these just because they are much harder to apply to bosses compared to Divinity or Tractor Cannon. Divinity and Tractor Cannon are going to be your main two debuff sources just because of how easy they are to apply and or percentages. Divinity creates a giant crit spot for your team to hit. Along with that, applies a 15% debuff. So these two factors together makes it a very good weapon for team play for precision weapons. So for example, if your team is using something like LFRs or a slug shotgun or sniper strategy, then Divinity is going to be your best pick here because it'll make the crit spot much easier to hit. Or if your team is more confident in your aim, or if you're using something like rockets or swords, Tractor Cannon is just going to be the much better option just because you do not get a increased crit size, but you do get a 30% debuff unlike Divinity's 15%. Now you really do have to be doing the is it worth the trade-off of someone's damage in order to increase everyone's else. The biggest factor about that part would be, do you have multiple hunters on your fire team? If so, why not have maybe one or two of them on tether with Orpheus rings in order to have a 30% debuff without sacrificing other teammates' damage. So keep in mind these factors before you choose either running a Divinity or Tractor Cannon for every boss phase. Now for the empowering part, there's only going to be one weapon currently in the game that will give an empowering buff. That's going to be Lumina with its Blessing of the Sky. What this does is it'll give each teammate you shoot with it a 35% empowering buff, which overrides well, but it's a higher buff than well. Now keep note, whenever you do shoot your teammate with one of these orbs from Lumina, you also give yourself the buff. Now that we've gone over the empowering and debuffs of weapon category, let's go into the weapons just for straight up damage. Now the biggest two obvious ones are going to be Witherhoard and Osteostriga. Now the reason for this is because they are able to do overtime damage / tick damage to a boss. Harder of two is just going to be Osteo, but once you learn how to use Osteo, it'll honestly be much better than running a Witherhoard. Now the biggest thing with these is that you can only stack one of each, so you can only stick a boss with one Witherhoard and one Osteo at a time. So you cannot have two Witherhoards at the same time, and you cannot have two Osteos at the same time. You have to have one Witherhoard and one Osteo. You cannot stack two of the same weapon. I will say though, there's currently a bug with Osteo where if you have a Vorpal weapon, it'll just infinitely reproc for you. So if you have something like a demo rocket with Vorpal, then you never have to reapply Witherhoard because you can just infinitely throw grenades with your Vorpal rocket and it'll always reapply. But this is currently just a bug, so it will probably be patched in the future. Other DPS weapon options are going to be something like your Izanagi's Burdens or your Arbalist. Now these weapons are best paired with your auto-loading rockets. The good thing about these weapons is that there's no limit to how many of these weapons you can stack. Another option that are similar to these two is going to be your Merciless, which I would run if you have something like a Field Prep Clown Cart Hothead. This allows you to spam all your heavy ammo as fast as possible, and then when you're out of heavy, you can swap to your Merciless to get even more damage out quickly. There are also other team play weapons such as Touch of Malice or Outbreak Perfected that you can use in teams, but these are more weapons used in a last-ditch effort to kill a boss when you're out of heavy ammo completely, which is kind of hard in its current meta. But if you were to run either Touch of Malice or Outbreak Perfected, You would have to have the entire team using the same weapon to get the most benefit. Next up, let's get into our subclass setups in order to help benefit our team. Now, this clip is from our DPS testing from when Lightfall first dropped. This is so we can get a better understanding of how to run our team for certain bosses, so that way we'd be better prepared for the day one. Now, our team composition for this was 4 Warlocks, 1 Hunter, 1 Titan, and this is my suggestion for any team running at least 2 Warlocks. You want to be using Starfire in its current state to take advantage of the fusion nade damage. Now, this should be obvious, but most people don't understand how Osteo works, and the way it works is you just basically shoot an enemy a couple times and it'll apply a damage over time effect similar to Witherhoard. Now, I don't see many people using this in damage strats, but should be taken advantage of way more than it actually is currently. This allows you to stack 1 Witherhoard and Osteo for damage over time, so you're both able to get your fusion grenades back faster. As we know, 2 Witherhoards or 2 Osteos do not stack, but if you have 1 of each, they will stack. Now, as for any other Warlocks, if you say, for example, you're running 3 or 4 like us, then I would have one of them run the new Strand Super, as you can run Thread of Regeneration and Threadling Grenades with Thread of Ascent in order to reload your rocket launchers. Now, the good thing with this is that the Thread of Ascent will allow you to have any perks on your weapon and automatically reload it, as you do not need Demolitionist to proc this. Now, what I would do is have an auto-loading rocket with a fusion rifle, as this is what will give you your grenade back from Thread of Regeneration the fastest from our testing. This will work pretty well on close-up bosses to medium-range bosses. It's a bit more of a struggle on further away bosses. Now, another suggestion, if you do not like running the Strand Super for Warlock, is going to be running Arc with Arc Souls, as all you have to do is place one of these in the well with all your teammates, and everyone will get an Arc Soul to do passive overtime damage, as we are using in this clip. The one downside with this is if the boss is too far away, the Arc Souls will not track to him like Oryx, which is why we do not use it in our one phase strat on Oryx. Now, if you are a less advanced player and don't know how to use the Strand Super as well as others, and the 2 Starfires are already taken on your teams, I would recommend just rocking Arc Souls, as they are very easy passive damage. Not only that, but Chaos Reach with Geomags is a pretty solid damage option for when you are out of rockets. Along with that, if we had a Strand Warlock, we would typically put them on Galahorn. There are exceptions to this. Now, for our Titan players, I would recommend either running Banner Shield for that 40% damage empowering buff for your teammates, or if you are a Titan that already has too many wells, I would recommend running Arc Titan for Thunder Crash. Now, Kyrus would be my recommendation if you were going to run Arc Titan, as Hoyle doesn't really work as well anymore for damage strategies, but there is exceptions to this as well. The reason why I say there are exceptions to this, because there's advanced strategy like Verity's Brow Warlock, who just infinitely chain kills, which basically allows you to get grenade energy at an insane rate. With the Verity strategy is a more advanced strategy for more advanced teams. Easiest place to get your team to learn this strategy is going to be Oryx, as seen in this clip. What the Warlocks basically just need to do is kill Thrall as the damage phase is going on and throw your grenades. This will just basically give your teammates a buff that gives your teammates 1000% grenade recharge rate. The reason you have 2 Warlocks doing this is so that way you can give each other that buff for grenade regens. Now, I'm not the most advanced Hunter player. I do not play a lot of Hunters, so this is gonna just be more take it as a grain of salt. If you're a Hunter main and you know better, then use what you know. But my 3 biggest suggestions are going to be Tether if you do not have a debuff like Tractor already, with Orpheus Rigs to get the most out of the duration of your tether. Now, if you don't need that debuff and you want to put more damage out, then I would recommend either running Arc Staff with Star Eater Scales for the most damage, or you can run Spine of Ahamkara, so that way you can just throw Trip Mine Grenades and throw Blade Barrage. I will say that the Arc Staff with Star Eater Scales is going to be a lot easier in most situations, but if you're able to pull off the Spine of Ahamkara build, it'll allow you to use the Demolitionist Rocket and almost never have to reload. But this does not work as fast as a Starfire Warlock and how fast they are able to throw fusion nades. So one of the clips I want to go over is one that I already have on my YouTube channel. This is while we were practicing for the day 1 raid race when Lightfall first came out. This clip also happened to be one of our best runs with all the new mods and stuff. We were able to one night War Priest. Now, the team composition we were running for this was going to be 4 Warlocks, 1 Hunter, and a Titan. So the Hunter was running Tether along with just a normal rocket launcher in order to do damage and give us a 30% debuff on the boss. Our Titan was running T-Crash with a rocket launcher so he can get damage out of his super. Now, our 4 Warlocks, we had 2 DPS dedicated Warlocks, which were just using Starfire and, Osteo and Witherhoard for fusion nades. Along with that, we also had another Warlock using Strand for Thread of Generation to get his grenade back faster. Along with that, pairing it with Threadling Grenades and Thread of Ascent to reload his rocket launcher whenever he got it back from Threat of Generation. And he was also our dedicated G-Horn player. Lastly, our last Warlock was going to be on Arc Souls, just to give us a passive DPS over time to increase our damage overall. Now in this clip, we did not run anything like Lumina or a Tractor Cannon. We had a Tether for the debuff and just the Well as our empowering buff. Everyone else was on something like Izanagi's Burden, Arbalist, Osteo, Wither Horde, etc. Next up, we have the Verity's Brow clip. Now this is also on my YouTube channel, and I wanted to show this off because this is more of an advanced strategy for teams to run. What you basically have to do is, if you notice in the bottom left, there are death rows, and if you have that increases the damage of your grenades, but will also give your teammates a buff that will increase their grenade regen rate by 1000%. So me and my teammate Thor are essentially killing thralls mid damage phase to keep our death rows up, allowing us to throw a ton of grenades during damage phase. Basically melting Oryx, because everyone is using rockets with Demolitionist and spamming grenades, allowing us to melt Oryx. Now, this is a clip from a raid that me and my friends were just doing, and 2 of the people in this lobby have never done our DPS strat, so they were kind of just learning along the way. So this is more or less just a run that we were doing normally. Now, we were basically doing the same strats. The only difference is that since one of our guys didn't know the strats, aka our hunter, he shot his tether off before shooting his Gallahorn, which is going to just be what sent this damage phase to not being a 1 phase. Along with this, it was full 3 orb. So we had the maximum amount of damage, or maximum amount of time for damage. It's just the difference of how you execute a strategy can make the world of difference to how much damage you'll actually put out. Because as you notice, if he shot that Gallahorn before tether, we would have gotten that sliver of health that he has. So you kind of just have to get used to learning combinations of how to do damage, because it can really make the world of difference. Now, if you found today's video helpful or informative, please leave a like and comment and subscribe, as this video took quite a while to put together, and that's why I haven't uploaded in a few days. Along with that, I'm also pretty new to the content creation field, so it is much harder to output high quality content like a lot of the other larger YouTube channels. With all that being said, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you guys would like to see any other type of content like this in the future, please leave a suggestion in the comments below so I can get to that and hopefully provide that content to you guys in the future. Thank you.